Thank you, Lance, and well done. Well, welcome then, Repton 2017. I hope that you've had a great start to camp so far. I hope that it's been great meeting your team. Maybe you've got some good team songs going on already. Hope you had a good start to Team Challenge. Maybe you've already climbed your way to the top of the table. We know in sport, getting a good start is really important, right? You want to go 1-0 up, get an early goal. Going a set or two up in tennis, your opponent's got a long way to go now, haven't they? The Premier League has just started. Of course, really important to get a good start in the Premier League. Raise your hand if you're a Burnley fan in here. Not many, that's a shame. Well done to Burnley for their great start. Well done if hands up if you're a Chelsea fan in here. Sorry. Sorry about that. Final one, raise your hand if you're a Man United fan in here. Top of the league. Good start to the season after a 4-0 win today, if you didn't know the result. Well done. Getting a good start in sport is really important. It's also really important when telling a story, right? You need a good start which is going to grab your attention and make you want to read on or keep listening. Raise your hand. Did anyone see the film La La Land? Oh, quite a few, actually. Put your hand up. Did you like it? Well, fair play. If I'm honest, I struggled to make it past the first 10 minutes. Was not thrilled by the start of it. It did not grab my attention. A story has got to grab your attention, right? Matthew chapter 1. Maybe you read that and go, oh, Matthew, you've had a mare. You've had a shocker. What have you done there? And maybe you've come to Sports Plus and you're mad keen for all of the sport. But this Jesus stuff you're not quite so sure about. And you're going to need a little bit of persuasion to make you interested. And maybe you're thinking this reading is not the thing that has done it yet. But actually, when we read this, when we start to try and understand what's going on here, we realize Matthew hasn't had a shocker. He's had a blinder. This is an unbelievable start. He's got it spot on. Because through this family history, he is telling us something groundbreaking about Jesus. Something life-changing about Jesus. Look down at verse 1, just there. This is the genealogy of Jesus, the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Now, if you do have a pen, why not just underline that word Messiah for me there? The word Messiah is God's chosen one, God's chosen king. Matthew's nailing his colours to the mast right away. Going, Jesus, he is the king. Jesus is the king. And he's going to show us through Jesus' family history that he is the king. So do have a listen. Do have a listen this evening. Have a listen this week. Because this is a king like no other. This is a king who changes everything. And this is a king that you're going to want to make way for. So, first thing that we are going to look at then, we're going to look at three things about Jesus. The first one is the historical king, a factual family history. Another film, anyone see the recent film King Arthur? Less popular here. A fairly average film, but of course the appearance, we can't really see him, but there's David Beckham in his new acting career, probably the highlight of it. Looks terrible. But King Arthur, also a story about the true king rising up to take his place. But the thing about the story of King Arthur, right, it's a legend. No one really knows or believes that it happened. Knights of the Round Table, sword in the stone, magic and wizards. And maybe you think, and a lot of people think, that actually the story of Jesus is a bit like that. Just a legend. No one really believes that all of that stuff happened with the loaves and the fish and the walking of water and angels and demons and all of that kind of stuff. But actually what we see here is that Jesus is a historical king, a real person, in real life, in real time, in the real world. And we can see that in two ways. First of all is this book right here. Here on my hand, I'm holding evidence for the life of Jesus. This book written by Matthew. Matthew is a man who was with Jesus. He saw him, he saw what he did, he heard him, he was with him, he touched him, and he wrote this down. So here we have an eyewitness account of Jesus' life, a real man in history. And the second thing then is what we learn through this family history. I mean, just look at verse 16 there. You see, Jesus has parents. He's also got grandparents. And he's got ancestors. This is a real man born into this world with family in history. So we don't want to be thinking that Jesus is just a legend like King Arthur. But actually here Matthew is telling us that he's a real man, a historical king, space, time, and history. And here we say at the start of Sports Plus that this is true. We really believe that this is true. Second thing then that we will have a look at, the promised king, an impressive family history. I wonder if you or any of your family have ever looked into your family history. I'm a Woodbridge now, but I was a Musgrave until I got married. And the Musgraves, for better or worse, have done quite a lot of research into their family history. I won't bore you for too long, but let me just share a little bit with you. So some of our potential ancestors used to be kind of lords in the north of England and owned some castles. So we had our own family crest, and the motto there is sans changer, means without change. So pretty much every family gathering we have, there's always one point at which we all chant together, sans changer. That's normal, right? Here's another one for you. In the north, apparently there's all these villages named after us as well. Great Musgrave, there's me, and my brother and sister going for a visit one day. Here's the best one for you though, perhaps. These yellow lines on the road, right, invented by my granddad, George Musgrave. If you're a driver, you probably hate him. But back in 1947, the council were running a competition to try and increase safety on the roads and stuff. And this was my granddad's idea. This is what he entered. And do you know how much money he won for revolutionising the roads in the UK forever? £3. £3. There is a little glimpse into my family history. What does it tell you about me? Well, I don't own any castles in the north. I haven't inherited them. I don't own the town of Great Musgrave. And unfortunately, I don't get any money anytime anyone parks on the yellow line, which is unfortunate seeing as I got a parking ticket yesterday for parking on a yellow line. Family history often now doesn't actually tell you that much about a person. It's not something that these days we're so bothered by. But back when Matthew's writing, it's absolutely massive. It's really important because it tells you something about who you are. So Matthew telling us about Jesus' family history is telling us something really important about who Jesus is. He's showing us through his family history that Jesus is the king. So just look at verse 1 again. There's lots of names in here. You heard Lance do a great job at reading them out. I think Zerubbabel was my favourite one. It's a very impressive family history, right? There are a lot of important people here, kings, rulers. But you can see from verse 1 that there's a couple of names who it kind of hinges on, who are really important. The genealogy of Jesus, the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. We're just going to focus very quickly on David for a moment here. Have you heard of David from the Bible? He's the guy who defeated the Goliath guy with just a sling and a stone. The song, "The Lord is my shepherd," that was originally written by David. But what's the key thing about him here? Head down to verse 6 with me. And Jesse, the father of King David. Now, if you scan your eyes over the rest of the passage we've read, you don't see that word king come up again, I think, which is unusual because there are a great deal of kings in this passage. So there's a real key, important emphasis here on David as the king. So maybe underline that word king if you've got your pen out. David was Israel's kind of first proper king, the first good king, and he was a great king. He was Israel's great king. But he wasn't perfect. He wasn't the one true king. But there was a promise. There was a prophecy that there was going to be a greater king to follow. That there was going to be the one true king. And he was going to be in David's line. He was going to be a son of David. And so God's people are waiting for a king. You kind of get this idea in King Arthur, that they're waiting for the one true king to come who's going to come and pull the sword out of the stone, and he's going to make everything good again. They're waiting for, where's the king going to come? God's people are waiting for the king. Generation after generation goes by. Where's the king? Hundreds and hundreds of years go by until Matthew's gospel. Here he is, verse 1. This is the genealogy of Jesus, the Messiah, the king, the son of David, the promised king, the one that they had been waiting for. Matthew was saying, here he is. This is the king. Jesus' family history tells us that Jesus is the king. Now, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for you? Why do you care about that? Because if he is the true king of the world, then he is the king of me. And he is the king of you. And we owe him our allegiance. If he is the true king of the world, then actually he is the king of my life. Perhaps I need to take my own crown off my head because he is the king of my life. Will we make way for him? An impressive family history. Final thing we'll look at then. The people's king, the king for everyone. A messy family history. Back to the Musgraves for a moment. You'll be pleased to know the story continues about my granddad. 50 years later, my granddad was driving to go and pick up his pension, needed to park somewhere, so parked on a yellow line, and received a £30 parking fine because of it. Some of the media were thrilled by this, and so here's the story making it into the Independent. And as I was looking into this a couple of weeks ago, I discovered that my granddad actually makes it into the book of the world's dumbest criminals. Unbelievable. Good, let that settle. Perhaps not something to be so proud of. Jesus has an incredibly impressive family history, but then there are some names in there where you go, oh, Matthew, why did you put that one in? Oh, why did you bring that up? Why have you deliberately drawn attention to some names which bring up stories which are pretty messy and scandalous situations? And he does it because he's telling us something about this king. He's telling us something about the king and who he has come for. He does it through the names of 5 women. Again, underline these if you've got your pen with you. Verse 3, you've got Tamar. Verse 5, you've got Rahab. Then you've got Ruth. Verse 6, you've got Uriah's wife. And then over there in verse 16, you've got Mary. So what's Matthew telling us then? He's telling us that Jesus is a king for all people. We've just sung the memory verse. Where is the one who has been born? Who has been born king of the Jews? He's king of the Jews. He was the king who the Jews were long waiting for. But he's not just the king of the Jews. These first 3 women we get here, Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, none of them are Jews. They're foreigners. So Matthew's telling us that Jesus isn't just the king for the Jews. He's a king for everyone. The king for the whole world. The king for me and the king for you. Matthew also wants to tell us that Jesus is a king for messy people. So some of these names do bring up messy lives. The first one, Rahab, just verse 5. Her profession was she was a prostitute. Matthew, you didn't need to bring that up. Then you've got verse 6, right? David was the father of Solomon, whose mother had been Uriah's wife. Well, what's going on there? This is a lady called Bathsheba. So here we have King David, great king of Israel, who's married. Likes the look of this lady, Bathsheba, who is also married. So commits adultery with her and then organizes the death of her husband, Uriah. Matthew, why did you have to bring that one up? Why did you draw attention to that? And then even Mary, we have Jesus' own mother. It was a scandalous story because she was pregnant, though she wasn't yet married. And of course, in the Christmas story, as we'll hear tomorrow, we'll find out why that was. But here Matthew is telling us Jesus is a king who has come for messy people with messy lives. He's not a king who is so high up on his throne that he won't come and get his hands dirty. He comes for those who are rejected. He comes to those who no one else will go to. He comes to those who have fallen short, to those who don't have an impressive family history. He comes for messy people like me and like you. This King Jesus, he comes for you. He's got a lot to say to you this week. He knows everything about you. He knows everything that you have ever done. And he loves you. He gave his life for yours. He is the King who gave his life for yours. So listen in about him this week. You will find out some incredible things about the King who comes for you. There we have it then. Three things. The historical king, a factual family history. This is a real man we're talking about. Space, time, and history. The promised king, an impressive family history. The one true king the whole world has been waiting for. And then the people's king. The king for everyone, a messy family history. The king who comes for people like me and for people like you. And we're going to make way for this king in our lives. Let me pray, then I'll hand back to Lance. Father, thank you so much that your word is true, that it always speaks to us. Thank you so much that we can understand more about Jesus as this king. Thank you that it's not a fairy tale that we're talking about here. Thank you for the greatness of Jesus that we just get a little glimpse of this evening. And thank you so much that he is a king who comes to engage with us, with people like us. Help us to understand more about him this week, and may we want to make way for him in our lives. In Jesus' name, amen.